Christina Merkley here, the Shift-It Coach, and I'm really happy to have a special guest interviewee, Lisa Merlo-Booth. And I'm very pleased to have Lisa here. I've invited her to come and speak about her specialty area, which is really about women and men as well, but women and really reaching their grounded, powerful strengths. And Lisa is a therapist, a coach. I have actually used her services myself. I think she's wonderful. She's helped me with different things in my own personal and professional life. And I really want to bring her in to speak to all of us about boundaries and about how to communicate and how to communicate in a healthy, powerful way, which is something many of us have confused. We might be able to do it in our professional life, but maybe it's hard in our personal or vice versa. So with that little short introduction, let me welcome Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. It's great to be here.
Happy to have you here. So anything you would want to add to your introduction? I'm going to make sure people know once we're done this how to find you and all the wonderful courses and counseling and different things that you offer. But hopefully I gave a good overall of you. Anything you'd like to add to the introduction?
I thought you did a great job. The only thing I would add is that I'm a relationship coach, I blog, and I do speaking, but I specialize with women and couples. Obviously, I do a lot of work with men as well, but those tend to be my two niches.
Okay, wonderful, great. Gives people a fuller sense. Good. So you've prepared a presentation for us because you and I have been able to talk about this conversation a little bit. So any kind of heads up on what we're going to chat about or how we're going to handle this?
Yeah, so basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've seen over the years. I mean, I've worked with hundreds of people, men, women, couples, and just through all my work, what I've seen is people playing small, and in particular, women playing small, although, as you said, men can play small as well. So can teenagers and, everybody. And so through that work, I started seeing people settling for things that nobody should be settling for and not really realizing how do they step into the world, one, as an equal, and how do they step into conflict in a way that is healthy, respectful, and effective. And I just found that really not very many people know how to do that. And our world at large doesn't do it, and I don't know that we know how to. So this is kind of it's really a how-to. It's a little bit about that and giving people some tools on, where to start.
That's awesome. I so agree with that. And as a Shift-It coach, primarily what I'm helping people do is figure out what it is that they want to create in life. Often it's work and money, and relationship does come up because we're relational beings. It's not the focus of my practice. So this so fits in because what do we do when we encounter things that don't go the way we want to, or there's conflict that's going on, whether it's at home or it's in business, and especially for my audience too, a lot of us are coaches. So I know you offer programs specifically on that too, like working your edges of how do you handle it as a coach when conflict comes up in your practice. So this is just so needed in our world. Yeah. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me, too, because it's so great just to speak to different audiences, because I think it's so valuable for everybody, and we just don't hear it. We just don't get it. We don't learn.
Yeah. So. Yeah, or what we do learn is so unhealthy and not the way to be healthily relational. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
So what do you have in front of us here? I can see a slide.
Okay, so let me just start by what I noticed is that too many people play small, right? And they play small in how they speak, in how they show up in the world, in what they accept, what they don't accept, in what they settle for. And so I see, people, they silence or they blow up, or they start complaining about poor treatment, but they don't actually do anything to stop it or change it. They kind of sit back and they wait and hope and wish for the other person to change, whether the other person is their boss or their husband or their child or whoever. And so when they're doing that, when they're staying in miserable marriages or they're staying in a job that absolutely they can't stand, but it pays the bills, but they don't go looking for other jobs, meanwhile that job's killing their family, it's sucking the life out of them, et cetera. All of those are different ways that we play small. And so, you know, much of my work is about teaching people how to step into life as an equal. And when I say as an equal, what that means is it's basically healthy self-esteem, right? So healthy self-esteem is the ability to hold yourself in warm regard despite your imperfections. And so it's the belief that you're no better than anybody else and you're no less than anybody else. And so you hold your own and you step into the world as an equal, regardless of who is on the other side of you. I don't care if the person on the other side of you is the President of the United States. I don't care if they're a drug addict. I don't care if they're your mother. It doesn't matter. But can you hold your own in a business meeting, in an argument with somebody who's famous, with somebody who's rich? How do you just walk in the world as an equal? And part of that is about courage, right? It's about having the courage to think for yourself, right? What I notice with women a lot is they ask others for answers that they have within themselves. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Or, gosh, you know, my husband said this, and I don't know, that kind of felt weird to me. What do you think? And then if their friend's like, oh, no, that's fine, the woman all of a sudden says, oh, it must be fine, right? And so we turn to others to kind of give us answers that we have in ourselves. We need to have the courage to stand up for ourselves, right? Too many men, women, you know, teenagers, they decide what they're going to do based on how they think the other person is going to respond, rather than stepping in based on, do I need to have my back? Do I need to set a limit or not? I don't care how they're going to respond or not respond. I'll be clean on my end, but, you know, do I do that?
What's authentically going on for me, right? And how do I communicate that instead of being that other focus and figuring out what they're doing?
Yeah. And it's really hard to do, and most people are way more focused on is the other person going to change? Are they going to hear me? Are they going to blow up? Oh, he's just going to get mad, so I'll just shut up anyway, right? And that just is not us stepping in as an equal. The other thing is, in order to step in as an equal, you have to have the courage to share yourself, right? Too many people silence their voices. They silence their voices, whether it's around opinions or thoughts or upsets or, you know, any of that. They just silence their voices. Or they start sharing what they think other people want to hear, not what they want to share. Stepping in as an equal is about having respect for yourself, right? And, you know, one of the things that drives me crazy with women is they have no self-respect when it comes to, like, if they want a man, they sleep with a man in order to get a man. And like that, you can't do that, right? That just is you playing small in such a big way. And it's really hard. And I see divorced women, oh, I have to prove that I'm attractive. I got to do that. And so they just play small in a big way on that. And, you know, part of that is having the courage to wait. You have to have the courage to allow the quote-unquote bad man to walk away, or bad woman. If the woman's not good for you, let her walk away, right? And respect yourself not to settle. I hear so many people say, well, at least having someone is better than no one. No, it's really not. You know, it's really not. So those are some of the, you know, key points. Stepping in as an equal is walk with confidence, speak with confidence, believe in yourself, share your thoughts, your ideas, all those, you know, all those areas. And what I've seen, my experience in life, whether it was me growing up as a kid or in the world, is that, you know, people respond in the extremes, and it's in our world, it's everywhere. When I was growing up, you know, I just remember my dad could, in a moment, he could get really angry and he could rage, and I could watch my mom kind of cower, right? And for the longest time, I thought men raged and women cowered. And as I got older, I started seeing women rage and the men cowering or children cowering, or right? And then I saw athletic coaches, sports coaches, you know, and just getting in their players' faces and yelling and screaming. And, you know, Coach Bobby Knight, one of the biggest basketball coaches, you know, ever, throwing a chair across the gym floor because he was so angry. And everybody talking about what a great coach he is, or Governor Chris Christie. Oh my gosh. You know, I remember watching him on the TV, and he looks, you know, somebody asked him a question and said something, and he looks at me and goes, yo, what are you, stupid? I'm the governor. Shut your mouth. And I was like, oh my gosh. Just like, did he really say that? And then after, the news media is like, that's what I love about him, right? He just calls it like he is. He's a very powerful guy. I love that. And I was like, you have to be kidding me. That's not powerful. That's bullying.
Wow. Yeah. And these examples, it just seems to be escalating over the years, especially with maybe our emphasis on reality TV, right? And who's brought on to reality TV, but people who have a lot of drama because it's captivating to the camera, or, you know, has that kind of excitement drama level to things. And it seems to be programming people that this is the way to behave or to be.
Absolutely. It's so true. And on those reality TV shows, they're screaming at each other. They're going crazy. And it's almost as though, you know, we believe that the poor behavior of somebody else justifies our own. It's a green light for our own. And that is such a dangerous thing to start playing with, right? And so I think our world teaches a power over paradigm. And it often confuses power with aggression and standing up for ourselves with stepping on others. And when we do that, what happens is we have no idea how to affect change in our lives in a way that maintains connection and is respectful to both ourselves and the other person, right? So we can move in power over them and yell and scream and certainly get what we want, right? Because people are afraid of us, they're going to do it. Or we allow others to move in power over us, and we shrink and we get scared and we just like, okay, we accommodate, right? And I believe the reason why we do this is because we have no idea how to do it differently.
Yeah, what's the alternative if you think that's the only way to be?
Right. Throughout history, we've had two role models around how to affect change, and it's been the women who have come before us, right, or men. And the women who come before us were trained to be nurturing and placating and pleasing and loving, right? And men were taught to, if people don't hear you, make them hear you. So here for decades, not even decades, forever, you know, these are our only two role models. And if you watch the world, this is what happens. People have learned to respond in the extremes. And so we're either overshooting or we're undershooting. And when we're overshooting, we're yelling, screaming, in their face, micromanaging, controlling others. And when we undershoot, we're shrinking, we're over-accommodating, we're saying yes when we mean no, we're placating, right? We're doing everything we can to keep the peace and keep the other person calm. And as you can imagine, it's wreaking havoc in our relationships, in our lives, in our work environments, everywhere.
Yeah,
so,
we talk a lot about energy in my work, and even as we're talking about this, I can just feel this kind of ick slime descending over us, right? It's just certainly got a certain frequency to it and an energy to it that is very uncomfortable and demoralizing.
Right, right. And, you know, it's also understandable. Like, I get it. I get why people do it. Like I said, I mean, we don't know any better. We haven't had very many role models to do it differently. And we have to start noticing. We've got to start waking up because
it's time to evolve. Yeah.
It's time to evolve.
Yeah.
And so so much of my work is about, it's learning to create and step in with a new power paradigm, right? A new power paradigm that's about respect, that's about strength, and that's about true power, not aggressive or bullying power, right?
I'm getting goosebumps as you're talking about that up and down my neck. Yes.
Yeah, it's a shift from a power over paradigm to a power from within. Right? And people think that if they're not yelling and screaming, then they're not going to be effective, they're not powering, and they're not standing up for themselves. And when you're yelling and screaming, you're still playing small, you're just playing small loudly, right? And so this new power paradigm, which is power from within, is what I call a grounded, powerful strength. And your GPS, right? Use your GPS to guide you. And your GPS is about stepping in with a calm, respectful, powerful presence. Right? And people get confused. They think if you're calm, you can't be powerful. Right? And you can be so much more powerful, so much more effective, and it can be almost jaw-dropping for people. When you can just step in and own your space and be very clean and very respectful and very firm, right? And go ahead.
I just, you used a word again, and I'm sure you're going to come to it again, but I'm really struck by the word clean.
Yeah. So clean means on your end, you are respectful, you are compassionate, right? I'm not being contemptuous, I'm not being righteous, right? I'm not calling you names, I'm not shaming you in any way. I'm just having my back without squashing yours. And so I often say, your responsibility is to be clean on your end. Watch how you're speaking. Watch what you're saying, right? Be clean, be clear, be respectful. And whatever the other person does on their side, that's their work. That's not your work, right? And if you were clean, you're good. And if they lost it and got reactive and blew up, that's on them, right? We don't know, we don't get that because we think, oh my gosh, I was calm. Are you there?
I'm here. Yep.
Oh, sorry. I just
Yep. Yep. It all sounds good. Yep.
Sorry, I lost your picture, so I lost your
Yeah.
So we think that, if let's say I was clean on my end, but the other person really lost it, then I'm like, oh my gosh, see, it doesn't work. Forget it. And then we shift it. And we have to get out of that thinking. It's not about how the other person's responding. I don't have control over that side at all. I got zero control over that. Yeah. I have control over me, and that's what my focus has to be.
You being mature, you being an adult, you being not one up or one down, but just in that really even place. And then you can be in your integrity with how you're behaving.
Yeah. Exactly. So a GPS, a grounded, powerful strength, it's a matter-of-fact strength, right? And the core component is compassion. So I have enough compassion for myself to stand up for me when I need to, while also having compassion for the humanity of the person on the other side of me in how I do so. Right? And so the underlying rule in that is do no harm. Do no harm to others and allow others to do no harm to me. Right? So if somebody's yelling and screaming at me and I do nothing and say nothing, I don't have compassion for myself and I'm not having my back, right? If somebody's yelling and screaming at me and I want to stop it and I yell and scream at them, I have my back, but I don't have compassion for them and I'm harming them and it's not justified. So it's really about both. It's about basic humanity, right? I need to treat others humanely, and I expect the same.
Yeah, right? Treating myself humanely as well and expecting to be treated humanely.
Exactly, and I'm not asking any more from you than I am of me.
Yeah.
Right? And I expect that you're going to have your back as well. If I'm out of line, I absolutely expect for you to say, hey, Lisa, that didn't feel okay. You know? So a GPS, a grounded powerful strength, is about walking in the world as an equal, you know, feeling worthy of using your voice, speaking your truth, sharing your opinions, and having your back guilt-free. Guilt-free, right? If you're going off on me and you're having a bad day, I can have what I say, compassion and accountability. So I can have compassion for your difficult day while I hold you accountable for how you're talking to me, right? And so this grounded, powerful strength, it encompasses not only in the difficult times, but in everyday life, how you walk in the world. Don't shrink so others can feel okay in your presence, right? Sit at the table, have the discussion, share your opinion, right? Don't force your opinion on others and share your opinion. Hold your head high, look people in the eyes. If there's a hard decision, don't duck from it, right? In life, don't duck, hide, or try to blend in, right? And don't get so big that you have to be seen. Don't be so reactive in the life of the party and look at me, right? Just step in and hold your own and know you're worthy and know that you deserve to be here just like everybody else. And you deserve to be treated well just like everybody else, right? When you're in that strength, you have nothing at all to prove.
This is reminding me in Shift-It, one of the first moves we do is life maps. And so we're looking over the course of our life from when we're born up to whatever age we are now. And we're distilling out often the beliefs, because part of what we're doing is you know, there's a vision to come about what it is we next want to create in life. And sometimes that vision is very thumbs up. There's not a lot of resistance in the way, and sometimes there is a lot of resistance or different things complicating it. So what you're getting to hear about really worth and value, right? Like, treat yourself as an equal. Well, one must know they're an equal and must know that they are of value and of worth as much as anybody else is. And I'm just kind of doing a shout out to my audience, is like, look at your life maps and look at the little nuggets that were shook out there about some of those earlier beliefs that may need some adjustment, right? If you did internalize that you're less value or more value than other people, and getting into this new belief moving forward about, no, I'm equal. I'm not above, I'm not below, I'm equal.
And that's, you know, it's a minute-to-minute practice, and it starts with getting conscious. You have to really be aware, when am I going one up, right? When do I think I'm better than others? When am I going one down and I think I'm less than others? And once you start getting that and seeing that and feeling it, then you got to step in and you, like, you know, if I go one up on somebody, even in my head, like, I may not say anything to them, but in my head, I might be looking down my nose at them. The moment I feel myself doing that, I got to tell myself, Lisa, get off your high horse. You are no better than them. You are no less than them. You, too, can do ... or, you know. And once you get that consciousness and you really start watching, well, it's kind of funny because the first way I really learned it was by watching the world. I watched the world first. I watched other people go one up and one down. And then I got a better sense of when I did. But it really starts with that. And the whole idea that when you stop thinking somebody else is better than you, you can then start realizing that you are better than you think you've been, than you think you are. I don't know how to explain that. Like, sometimes if you take that one down position is very much like, oh, they're so much better, they're smarter, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that. When you start really paying attention and looking at the world and watching that everybody makes mistakes, even those you hold in this holier-than-thou position. They make mistakes, but it doesn't mean that they are horrible human beings, or that it just makes them human, just like you. When you make mistakes, it just makes you human. And so, you know, it starts with consciousness. It starts with kind of figuring out, like, you know, one of the things you said is when you're, for your life maps, like, what beliefs did you buy into? It also starts with kind of creating new philosophies for you, right? Like,
Totally.
What is your philosophy, and what do you believe? And now, like, start, stand behind it. One of my core philosophies is that nobody has the right to treat me poorly, and nor do I have the right to treat them poorly. Like, just don't. And so once I get clear with that, it kind of grounds me in, oh, I may be really pissed right now, but I don't get to let loose, right? And they may be really angry, and I may have screwed up. I may have really, my bad. And it doesn't give them the right to be verbally abusive to me or shaming or anything. It does give them the right to hold me accountable. So kind of, practice your philosophies, get grounded in them, figure out what they are, and then start stepping in the world in a way that's going to back those without hurting others. You don't want to be hurt, you don't get the right to hurt others.
I love all of what you're saying, and I'm cluing in on as well just the feeling. And again, like you're saying, we can notice the consciousness of when we've slipped into being one up, or when we've slipped into being one down, and they have very different feels to them. So we can start to spot like that feeling within our body and how we, embody this stuff, and I'm here again.
Right,
That's
right.
the clue, right? And I also know for myself, my own journey with becoming aware of this and then working with this, that I've started off because some of the modeling, very similar to what you represented as a typical female role model from the past. I grew up on Air Force mentality in life, nothing against that, but the message was very much a submission of women, and men being very much the fly boys and in power and in control and lots of fun. But that squashing. So it wasn't until I reached my 40s and I kind of swung too far to the other side, and I know in speaking to you that this is very common where people will flip-flop. So if it was too much of the quiet and putting myself low down the totem pole and letting others kind of get away with that behavior, then I remember the moment with a business partner a couple of years ago where bad behavior was coming my way, and I was just amazed that I was actually meeting him and duking it back just as much as he was giving it to me.
Right.
And it was kind of progress in a way from where it had been before, but it's not something that I wanted to stay with as a way of being in the world, right? So common to have that awkward growing pains as we identify this stuff and learn to inhabit it in different ways.
Right. Not only is it common, I would almost go so far as to say it's almost universal. So, and I wish I could find the magic pill to help people. It's what I call find the middle, right? People are on the extreme, and the goal is you got to find the middle. If you have somebody, let's say somebody is highly reactive and a rager, and just if someone gets up in their face, they're going to attack, right? They're going to be the bully. In their effort to learn how to settle down and calm down and find that grounded, powerful strength, often they'll go to the total opposite extreme where they won't say anything, they'll just silence because they're so afraid that they're going to bully and get big that they just silence themselves. Similarly, if you have somebody who tends to silence or shrink on their journey to finding their voice and having their back, they'll become this like aggressive, coming at people. And, and at first they're like, yeah, I didn't take it. And it's like, okay, so you went from this extreme to the other extreme. Neither extreme is great, and it's good. Like you have to kind of walk, that's just the journey, I think. And then you got to find the middle. You got to pull back. If you're on either extreme, it doesn't matter what the extreme is. You're in an extreme. And so you have to find the middle. And so know that as you're trying to work through this and you're trying to figure it out, you most likely are going to go to the opposite place. But no, like this is where don't fool yourself into saying, great, you know what, I used to take it, now I don't take it anymore, and don't land there.
Which I think some therapy does do that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's particularly good therapy, but, you know, add a context of what's going on when you just look at one side of the equation and you're moving somebody from one down into a more empowered state. There can be that rah-rah atta-girl that riles things up in a way that ultimately isn't, you know, helpful for real connection.
Absolutely, and it's hard because, you know, if you grew up in a family with ragers or loud families who were yelling, like your core belief is that's just what happens. Like, you know, when you're upset, you so what? It'll blow over. Just so what? I called you whatever name I called you last week. It was no big deal. I was mad. That's what people do, and so your core belief gets messed up because of what you were raised with. Or like you said, if you're raised, you know, you are raised to be quiet and accommodating and pleasing, your core belief is that's the way to be. You should just do that and don't make waves, and that's okay. And we have to start challenging those core beliefs. And we really have to start figuring out, look, I need to learn how to step in a way that I can kind of own my power without hurting anybody else or letting them hurt us. And if my core beliefs are screwing that up for me, I gotta retrain myself.
Yeah. Bring this into light of day and shift it.
Exactly. Get conscious and then shift. You know, you know, the way I say it is, look, if you don't like something, stop complaining about it and change it, right? And, you know, that's the piece. Oh, sorry.
No, that's great. I'm just not sure what your next slide was, so I want to see where you want to go as opposed to steering something. Yeah.
Well, you know, the last one is just really, it's just kind of in conflict. If you're, you know, using that grounded, powerful strength in conflict is get grounded, not reactive. If you're getting reactive and you're blowing up all over the place, I have to tell you, the last thing people are going to do is look at themselves, right? If you're blowing up at me or you're blowing up at your partner, whatever, your partner's going to be looking at you like, you think I'm bad? Look at you, you're a nut, right? And they're going to totally blow you off, well, even though your message may be great. So
you might be right. Your content might be right, but they can't hear it through how you're delivering it.
Exactly. And, you know, what I say is don't let a great message get lost in the delivery. It doesn't serve you, right? And I had a couple one time that I was working with, and it was so funny. He was talking, and she interrupted him once, and then he kept talking. She interrupted it again, and he looked at her, and he's like, would you shut up and stop interrupting? And I said, okay, great message, horrible delivery. Let's work on that too. You know? And so I had to, like, you know, really work with him around how can you say that in a way that's mutually respectful and that she hears you, right? So when you're going to stand up for yourself, get grounded, not reactive.
Can you give an example, Lisa? Would you finish that off for us about what the correct version would be?
Yeah, so instead of, would you shut up and stop interrupting me? Probably not in the marriage, right? You know, you say, can you give me a moment and let me finish talking? You keep interrupting me, and I'm getting frustrated with that.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just matter of fact. I don't need to shame them. I don't need to, right?
Yeah.
And you're interrupting, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The voice and the adrenaline don't have to get all ramped up. You can deliver it in this matter-of-fact tone that you just demonstrated. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You know, one of the things, so actually when you say that, let me run through just 4 steps to a GPS, because one of them is what you just said. So the first step is pause. Pause. If you're getting triggered and you're in conflict with somebody, pause. And so when I say pause, if you can imagine, I have a remote control, I'm watching TV, and when I hit pause, they stop speaking and they stop moving. Everything just freezes, right? So when I pause, I got to stop speaking for a moment, right? I just have to stop, right? And then breathe. And the breathing is 4 by 4 by 4. Breathe into your heart to the count of 4. Hold it to the count of 4, release it to the count of 4. right? And the reason why you're breathing into your heart is because when we get triggered and we're revving, our heart starts beating faster and faster. And if we're speaking, our voice is getting faster and louder.
Yeah.
Right? So breathe into, or if you tend to be an undershooter, you're freezing up and your heart's going like crazy, it's pounding. So take that breath into your heart, slow it down, because we need the adults on board. We can't have a reactive little 9-year-old trying to effectively step in, right? So pause, breathe, think. And when I say think, use a grounding statement. So for me, one of the quickest, I just say, Lisa, GPS. Right? If I tend to shrink and I'm growing silent, I'll just tell myself, speak it. Lisa, speak it. So a quick little mantra, just a grounding statement that can just help me, you know. And then the last one, then you step in. And when you step in, you step back in low, slow, and steady. And so let's say, you know, let's say, you know, a friend of mine or a boss is yelling at me and I'm getting triggered, right? And I can feel myself, you know, let's say I shut down. It's a boss, I'm shutting down. So the first thing, he's like, I can't believe you did that. So in front of him, I'm going to just close my mouth for a moment and I'm going to take that active breath. I'm going to, and I'm going to tell myself, speak it. And then I'm going to come in low, slow, and steady. And I'm going to say, you know, Tom, I'm happy to hear what you have to say to me, and it's not okay that you're screaming at me. Right? That's scary to say to a boss, and you're not going to get fired for saying that to the boss, right? Or your husband or your wife or whatever, right? So those are the 4 steps. It's pause, breathe, think, and then come back in, re-enter, low, slow, and steady.
You're creating a vibrational shift, too. So from that reactive kind of triggered, immature, reactive state to taking that time to create that buffer between it. I love what you're saying about the heart, because the heart certainly has a vibration to it as well. That's much more loving and who we want to be as opposed to who we often find ourselves being. And then that slow and steady, just coming back at that from that calm place, such a different, more grounded vibrational shift from where we were. And we got to take that, right? We have to, it's such a challenge at times, but there's the mastery, there's the maturity moment, right, is to take that breath, slow that all down, make that vibrational change happen so that what's coming out of you is different from what, you know, the instant reaction might be or what that person is delivering.
Exactly, and you have to give yourself permission to take the space. Like people they want to like do it right then and handle it. And so, you know, like if my husband, let's say he's saying something or doing something, and I'm getting really triggered, it's absolutely okay for me to be like, just pause for a second, breathe, and be like, and even like what I can say can give me permission to take that space. So I can say, wow, I'm getting so triggered right now. I need a minute to think.
Yeah.
And if you notice how slow I'm speaking, right, I just brought everything down. I just brought the entire room down for a moment. Wow, you just said that? Really? I got to breathe for a second. All of that is like an intervention in the while I'm trying to get like adult Lisa in this room right now.
Buying yourself some time for it to settle down and to evoke that energy you truly want to operate from.
And that's so much more powerful than, oh my gosh, who the hell are you to talk to me like that?
Off and running.
Instead of, listen, you talk to me like that again, and you and I are in trouble. Okay? Very different. I'm not yelling, I'm not screaming, but it's so much more powerful and effective than me going nuts on them. I think, you know.
Can you say something, because you are a therapist and counselor, and finding myself, I can see how there are situations where this is not going to work, or dangerous situations, right, or both people are not of the same vow, if you will, of wanting to work this kind of stuff. So can you say something about, you know, safety around this, if a person's really doing this and it's not working, you know?
So glad you said that.
Yeah.
The one caveat to this is physical abuse. Do not do this with physical abuse, right? If you're in a physically abusive relationship, you are not going to try to set limits on your partner, right? And let me just say something. If you are in a domestic violence relationship, a physically abusive relationship, the first thing, change your thinking. Your partner's violence towards you has absolutely nothing to do with you. They will hit, beat, hurt any partner that they are with. I cannot be more adamant about that. Now, if you're in a physically abusive relationship, you do need a grounded, powerful strength, right? But that grounded, powerful strength is going to show up very differently. It's going to show up where you got to tell yourself, you know what, I know I do not deserve to be hit no matter what I'm doing, and I can't hit somebody else, right? You don't get to pummel your partner and then say I don't get to be hit either, right? So you first need to know I don't deserve to be hit ever, and nobody does. And so what I know is I got to find the inner strength to get out of this relationship or to change this relationship. I would really say get out. Okay, if you're in a physically abusive relationship, I would say get out. So what you're going to have to do with that is you're going to have to call Women's Protective Services or go to, it's funny, I say Women's Protective Services. I know that men are also abused. It is far more common that men abuse women, so I don't want to say it's equal because it's not, and men are abused. And so I just know that Women's Protective Services deals with domestic violence. And so as a man, you need to, if you're being abused, you need to go someplace who's very familiar with this entire dynamic, right? But really the grounded, powerful strength is getting clear with yourself that this isn't okay, and I'm not going to allow my children to be raised in this, and I have to figure out a way to get my internal strength, get the resources that I need, get the money that I need, you know, pull in supports that I need, and to get out of this safely, because everybody knows that you're at the highest risk once you leave domestic violence. So we all know that it is not an easy thing to do at all. It starts, though, with the core belief that you are equal, and it's about you stepping in the world as an equal and knowing that nobody under any conditions ever has the right to abuse you. Ever.
Thank you. As your role as a therapist, delivering that as well, because obviously as a coach I have a different role, but there may well be people from my audience and certainly from yours listening to this, and that is their situation. So I'm glad we've said that. And I know for my audience too, if it's not happening now, it may be that there's an incident back on that life map that as they're listening to us, it's reminding them of something that they went through earlier in their life. And they have made that heroic transition that you're talking about. And they've got themselves into a much better place, and they're continuing to work on their evolution, right? Hence coming to this kind of information and coming to have an even greater GPS in their life than they have previously. Or it could also be ancestral, where they have witnessed that in their, you know, historical lineage as well. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And if you've gotten yourself out of that situation, like, oh my goodness, pat yourself on the back. That is so courageous. I commend you. It's so hard. And that's for any issue. You know, you go through life struggles. If you're able to kind of walk through it and come out on the other side stronger, you better pat yourself on the back. We beat ourselves up enough. We need to give ourselves some credit and really, you know, work through this. And one other thing I just want to tell people, change happens in the minutia. So sometimes, and you're the Shift-It coach, you know, like sometimes people think I need to do these huge life-altering changes. And I'm telling you, don't get stuck there, right? Don't get stuck there. Where you want to know is changes in the minutia. You do it a little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit, you take a new step, a little bit, and every time you do that, you say, good for me. And you feel better about it, and you have pride in that, and then the next day, you do it again, push yourself a little bit more. But changes in the minutia. You don't have to do these life-altering big moves, and before you know it, you're in a new place, a new time, and you're like, hot damn, right?
You did it. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I think.
Have we covered that on this? Is this our last slide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It is. You know, so much of this I said, you know, if you don't like something, change it. Don't complain about it. Complaining is not problem solving. If you're not happy in your relationship, stop looking at the other person and wishing they would change and hoping that they would change and begging them to change. What are you doing? You got no power over there. If you're not happy in your relationship or in your job or in your friendship, look at you. How am I responding? What am I doing? How am I sabotaging myself? Because I only have control over here. So you're not happy, change it. Or as you would say, shift it.
Yep.
Right? And don't allow fear to stop you. Fear is just, it's, you know, you may have heard this before, fear stands for false evidence appearing real. Fear, don't let it stop you. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You need to plan something around it, look at it, address it, and then move forward anyway. So many people stay in crazy relationships and crazy jobs because of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And don't do that. It hurts you. So that's it. And changes in the minutia. So you want to get out little steps. You can do it.
Well, this is wonderful, and this just helps. You know, part of that when you start to identify, and it may be these bigger shifts you were talking about with the domestic violence situation, or it may be it's just you're wanting to improve the way the behavior is happening in the relationship, whether it's personal or it's a professional relationship, and you're realizing you're going one down or you're going one up or the other person's doing that, whatever, right? And this is a step. By listening to this video and listening to the content here that Lisa's providing, this is a step in getting educated about these dynamics and learning more than what you've probably got from just the life path and what Lisa was saying about how our world operates, right? We're really in a paradigm shift in our world about growing ourselves up, hopefully, right? And doing it at those micro and macro levels, we can look at how this clashes between nations and things and wars that are going on, right? So it's just so apropos for us as individuals and in a couple or in a business partnership, as owners of businesses, and as people as citizens, right? To educate ourselves about how to be better at these things and how to grow ourselves up to that next level. Right. So I just really thank you for coming and sharing this information from your perspective as a relationship coach and a therapist. Just so wonderful to get this. Talking about education, I adore you and I adore your programs. So can you please let people know how they can find out more about you, give your website, and anything you want to share about the kinds of programs and coaching, counseling that you do?
Great. So my website is www.lisamerlobooth.com, which is LisaMerlobooth.com. You can get me on Twitter, which is @LisaMerlo-Booth. I have a Facebook page, which is Straight Talk for Women. I do teleclasses. If you go to my website, I do teleclasses for coaches, for therapists, for lay people, for men, for women. And if you just look under teleclasses, if you look under offerings and then teleclasses, some of the teleclasses that I do is I have one on a GPS. I have one called Strengthening Your Core. which is all about boundaries and self-esteem and just getting a stronger core so that you can do some of the things that we're talking about. I also have one on finding your voice, which is great for those of you who are speaking up, and one on setting limits. People do not know how to set limits, and many people don't even know what a limit is. They think that complaining is a limit, and, so any of those, and I do a couple of workshops for therapists as well, and, and then speaking.
That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. So you can see for yourself as an individual all sorts of stuff that Lisa offers. And then for yourself as a process professional, I just want to attest for her, she mentioned she does things with therapists and coaches. You may end up changing the name of this course, but Working Your Edges, I'm enrolled in that right now, and wonderful material because we have a lot of coaches, facilitators, trainers, different kinds of process professionals who are attracted to my work. And I just want to give you guys a heads up that Lisa has a course, particularly around that, right? If you've been in practice for a while and you're bumping up against the natural things that you bump up against when you work with people, and you're finding you're stuck in some of those habitual ways of being, I really recommend that particular course. It'll help bring some awareness to those patterns and things that you can do differently. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Lisa Merlo-Booth.
You're very welcome. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
You've really helped with getting this information out, so I appreciate your time.